Hello everybody, Ray Poynter here, and I'm going to be looking at the threats and opportunities facing market research that we were able to discover by looking at this chatbot experiment. And so I'm going to give a little bit of a reminder, introduction, then we're going to look at pessimism versus optimism, threats, opportunities, and a summary. So first of all, the reminder, it was 336 interviews conducted by a chatbot. This is a global convenience sample. It's people who are connected directly or at a second level with NewMR. It's not the whole market research industry. It is predominantly people who are interested in change, who are interested in looking at the way things might happen in the future, who are at least capable of reading English, mostly have English as a first or a very good second language. The data was very qualitative. The analysis is qualitative. We were looking at ranges of open-ended comments and then drawing inferences from those. So the first question actually was a quantitative question. In terms of the future of market research, are you optimistic, pessimistic, or neutral? And this is something I've seen quite a lot in things like the grit data as well. Market researchers tend to be a really optimistic bunch, or at least the people who are interested in being involved with the future of market research are really optimistic. And we need to bear that in mind when we look at the data. That's, it's over half of them, and only 14% would classify themselves as pessimistic about the future of market research. So if we look at those pessimistic people, we said, what makes you pessimistic? And then I went through, and all of this analysis, except for 2 slides, I did by looking and grouping and coding and creating structure in the data manually. With 336 responses, that wasn't too difficult. And this generated 6 themes. So the economy in general, people thought there was going to be less money, budgets being cut in client side and so on. A failure to move with the times, inertia, lack of innovation was seen as one of the reasons to be pessimistic. Another one was the use of new technology without protecting our traditional values. Another one was prioritizing speed over depth, whether you were doing it with new technology or not. And another one was DIY and AI and automation replacing people. And finally, competition from outside the world of non-market research. So these were seen as 6 different threats, some people expressing more than one of them amongst this 14%. The optimistic people, just over half, let's call it half. Again, we can summarize them into 6 groups. New tech will broaden the impact of market research skills. Because the world is changing, more research is necessary. With more data, we need to understand via research. Evidence-based decision-making is growing, it's on the up. People will always need market research because my company is really busy right now. And when I looked at the optimism and pessimism, what became very clear is that it's mostly a personality characteristic. Pessimistic people will say things like, the last 3 years have been really good, so it's going to turn down. The optimistic people will say things like, the last 3 years have been really bad, so it's got to get better. So the actual metric of pessimism versus optimism is quite a dodgy one, because you're not necessarily understanding their views of the market research industry as much as, are they an optimistic or pessimistic person? By contrast, the neutrals I found much more interesting. They're about 1/3 of the people we talked to, so a little bit over 100 of them. 3 themes emerged out of their data. One was this balance. New technologies and approaches offer opportunities, but will the lack of rigor lead to a decline in the use of market research? The second was the doubts about the economy. They didn't think the economy was necessarily going to be bad. But if it's bad, it will be bad for market research. If it's good for market research. That makes me unsure about the future. And this group also mentioned something that the other 2 didn't mention very much, which is the potential for fake news and reputational damage to have an impact on market research. They weren't sure whether it would, but they thought this was something that we needed to be aware of. So in many ways, if I were screening a set of responses for how indicative I thought they were, I will probably pay more attention in the future to the comments coming from the neutrals rather than the optimism, rather than the pessimism, although I will look at the reasons for optimism and the reasons for pessimism. We then asked people to generate the threats to market research, and boy, was there a lot of different threats. More ways of answering questions. So, for example, the big data being replaced by artificial intelligence along with automation and data mining. DIY and in-house solutions is seen as a threat by agency side people. Market research is not able to keep up with the changes, budget cuts with or without an economic downturn, decline in standards, reducing quality, lack of training and talent, rapid chasing the new at the expense of quality, budget cuts, that's a repetition, so that's one less, reduced pool of people willing to take part in market research. Lots and lots. Now, these threats came from all 336 people. A handful of people said there were no threats. So the optimists, the pessimists, and the neutrals were all giving us threats, and they're coming from all over the place. I then asked the team at Wizu to run their AI, and this is the results of running the AI on the same data. And what we see are the same themes coming through, which is really reassuring that I analyzed it manually. This is the threat through using an AI approach, big data and technology, automation, data quality. In the application, we see lots of quality and understanding coming through. In the environment, we see those budgets and the survey fatigue. So the same sorts of themes coming through. And of course, if you ran the AI, you'd be able to click on the boxes and drill down to see what the text was behind it. When we looked at the opportunities, when I looked at the opportunities, there were fewer of them. Blending the new with the old, leveraging the new, making the case for quality. One of the very interesting things was the role of qualitative. We're seeing more and more qualitative emerging, particularly with people involved with tech, with quantitative analysis, with automation, focusing on results, not methods, and finding the why. So there were some things there. We then ran the AI, the team at Wizu ran the AI, and insights, human interpretation, understanding, technology, AI and automation, being more consultancy, tackling the survey fatigue problem. So very, very similar things coming out of the AI, which is reassuring. I have to say it's easier to read the AI if you've already done some of the analysis manually. But of course, if you started with the AI, you could use that as a jumping in point. So the summary and the implications, pessimism versus optimism. It's quite clear that a key driver to whether somebody says they're pessimistic or optimistic about market research is an internal characteristic. It's not based on the data. The neutrals seem to have a view more based on the data. The threats. There are a wide range of threats, but I'm going to narrow them down to three. The economy, not adopting technology, and adopting technology in ways that damage the essence of market research. So depending on who you are, you'll have a different balance between 2 and 3. Are we doing not enough of it, or are we doing too much of it? The opportunities, these are narrower than the threats. In essence, we need to become masters of the new techniques using market research, and in particular, using qualitative as our secret sauce. So the implications, I would keep some money in a safe place just in case. This is not, to use poker playing terms, a good time to go all in, because you may well see that this is a very bumpy year economically. You should absolutely master some aspect of new technologies. Maybe you're going to master automation. Maybe you're going to master chatbots. Maybe you're going to master virtual reality and video. But there should be something you do this year which gets you into the new space. And then use market research and qualitative as the something extra. unless you are a really surprising person and working in the wrong sort of industry, you are not going to go in and say, we are better at Python and artificial intelligence than all the other suppliers of Python and artificial intelligence. What you can do is go in and say, because of our market research and our qualitative understanding, we bring something extra to the game beyond just the technology, beyond just the systems. So thank you very much, and I look forward to any questions.